Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. It's Tuesday, December 30th, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here are tonight's top stories.
Tonight, most Americans say they want independent prosecutors to try police. Then, an angry protester threatens the life of a reporter. And inside Obama's lavish vacations. That's next on the Infowars Nightly News.
Period, 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 period. Obama likes to say period all day. Shut up, shut up, shut up. I'm sick of your crap.
The autopsy results were released for Ezel Ford last night. They showed that the unarmed, mentally ill black man was shot by police 3 times, once in the side, once in the back, and once in the arm. Now, of course, many are seeing the fact that he was shot in the back as proof that he was murdered by cops. His family is calling it an execution. And of course, it's going to further stoke the flames of racial tension that are going on across the country. But experts say that the autopsy results don't conflict with officers' original accounts, that there was a struggle. And according to a retired Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department commander, he says the fact that the officer had to use his backup gun shows that he was in a life and death struggle. He says those guns are really small, they're very inaccurate, and they're only used as a last resort. They're designed to save one's own life. Now, experts also are saying that the fact that he was shot in the back, it's not really rare. It happens all the time, and it doesn't mean that officers acted improperly. Now, of course, we can never know that because police officers are not required to report how many times they shoot people. The state of Florida doesn't report that at all. Either way, Ford's family is not buying it. They've filed a $75 million civil lawsuit against the police department and the city. And also, these autopsy results did not sit well with protesters. One protester last night was caught on video threatening to set fire to a KTLA cameraman unless he stopped doing his job covering the scene.
Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com. Now today we have a new article out titled Video, Ezel Ford Protesters Threaten to Set Reporter on Fire. Now, this isn't just any reporter. This happens to actually be a personal friend of mine, Kirk Hawkins. I know him from back in Charlotte before I moved here to Austin for the Infowars job. He has since then moved from Charlotte to LA, where he is now one of the anchors at KTLA. He went to the vigil last night for the Ezel Ford. Ezel Ford was a mentally ill black man who was killed by LAPD earlier this year. And last night they read the results of the autopsy. A lot of people were out there protesting that. For the most part, everyone was peaceful, except for this one lady, an outside agitator. Let's take a look at that clip.
Well, Micah and Cher, we're live in Leimert Park because there was a peaceful protest here earlier today. We attended a vigil a short time ago, and it wasn't exactly peaceful, and it was all caught on camera.
Stop recording or else I'm going to drop the camera.
Reached a boiling point at the memorial for the 25-year-old tonight in South LA.
I'm about to set you the on fire if you don't back.
Hey, don't try to light me on fire.
As the media became the target, at one point, one of the demonstrators threatened a KTLA photographer.
If you want me to touch the camera, I can touch the camera and slam it into your face. I will hospitalize you. Shut up.
Nearby residents stepped in and tried to calm down the visitors from outside this neighborhood.
I'm worried about it because you're in my community.
Now, as you can see, the lady clearly pulls out a lighter and tries to set the cameraman on fire. That is crazy, out of this world. Well, anyways, one of the guys comes up who was out there protesting and goes, "Hey, who are you? You're not from around here." So this is another instance where we keep seeing these outside agitators like we saw in Ferguson in August and in November. And there's one thing that a lot of these people are starting to have in common: ties to RevCom. Now, you might have heard RevCom before by myself, David Knight, or Alex Jones. RevCom is the Revolutionary Communist Party. Now, they're an organization. They are out of Chicago, and they also have some people over in California as well. They're led by Bob Avakian and Carl Dix. Carl Dix can be seen in a lot of these protests as well. And I've also had a run-in with a guy called Greg Johnson. He was involved in Texas versus Johnson, where he tried to set an American, or he did set an American flag on fire. These guys go to protests, they take peaceful protests and turn them into riots. Now, I don't know what their agenda is, but they're also spending a lot of money. All these Black Lives Matters signs that you're seeing, all these I Can't Breathe or Stand with Ferguson or Mike Brown posters and all that, they're paying for it. That's a lot of money being spent into something like this when their entire agenda is to go in there and stir up controversy. So here we are, we're seeing this stuff time and time again. This is something everyone, I think, they need to keep their eyes open for. When you go to these protests, if you're around one of those, look for those. You'll see the RevCom at the bottom of the protest sign. They're out there trying to cause trouble, so stay clear of those guys. I texted Kirk earlier, and he said, yeah, last night was all in all a peaceful night. The only people that were out there trying to agitate was that lady right there, and it's funny, she's an outsider. But he posted up, or he was talking about getting ready to post up the footage from the vigil, and he gets a tweet from what seems to be the lady that's in the video. I'm literally going to kill that KTLA news reporter. Another one to Kirk Hawkins and KTLA. Good, you piece of S. If I ever see you again, I will personally be setting you on fire. These aren't a good group of people to be around. I don't know if she's personally with them or not, but the way she's acting, the way she's holding herself, carrying herself, and portraying the way that she is trying to go out and do these protests, it seems a lot like something that RevCom would do. So like I said before, keep an eye out for those people when you go to these protests. Stay tuned for more reports. Make sure you're going to the Alex Jones Twitter or Alex Jones YouTube channel. We're almost at 1 million subscribers, so help us reach that point. We need your help with that. Also, continue watching our reports on Infowars.com. Once again, I'm Joe Biggs.
So once again, we have largely peaceful protests with the locals being concerned about outside agitators and aggressive behavior. Again and again, we're seeing these protests where we have these outside agitators coming in, telling the media to leave. Meanwhile, for years, people have been saying they want the media to cover these stories, to cover the fact that Black men are being shot. And then so we have the media there, and then they're being told to leave. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Now, obviously, scenes like the one we just saw are going to further stoke this heated debate, this anti-cop rhetoric that we're seeing. Now, in response to those 2 police officers who were executed in New York, the NYPD was issued very drastic measures by union leaders. They were supposed to have 2 units responding to every call, and they were also instructed to only make arrests when they absolutely had to. Well, as a result of this, NYPD traffic tickets and summonses for minor offenses have dropped off by a staggering 94%. Overall arrests were down 66% for the week that started December 22nd. That's compared with the same period last year. Now, police sources said that safety concerns were the main reason for the drop-off in police activity, but they added that some cops were mounting an undeclared slowdown in protest of de Blasio. So once again, this is entirely political, and you got to think about that. All of these summonses and traffic tickets for minor offenses, none of that money is funneling into City Hall. So this is a very effective form of protest. And, you know, like those cigarette taxes, that was the main reason they killed Eric Garner. All of that money, $8 billion a year they get from those cigarette taxes. None of that is happening right now as of December 22nd. Now, there is a long history of warring against City Hall. Past mayors, Mayor David Dinkins, Rudy Giuliani, and Michael Bloomberg have all endured the animus there with the NYPD, even though they all have wildly divergent ideologies. In 1992, thousands of police officers stormed City Hall, stopped traffic on the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was all to protest the mayor. Mayor Dinkins wanted to create an independent, all-civilian complaint review board for the police department there, and thousands of police officers out of uniform showed up to protest this. And all people are calling for is independent citizen review boards. And of course, the fact that the NYPD is doing this slowdown is ridiculous because things like this are happening. This happened in broad daylight. An elderly man was brutally savaged by a street thug as he walked through a Bronx neighborhood. It's a neighborhood he lived in for decades. As you can see by the video, this happened in broad daylight, and it's a beating that 67-year-old William King referred to as a senseless racial attack. Now, the attack was captured on a home surveillance camera. It was a random assault, and it shows King's attacker also had an accomplice keeping watch from across the street. Now, the 67-year-old says that he believes it was a racial attack because they didn't try to rob him. He said he had money in his wallet, and they didn't even try to take it from him. So, of course, this could just be a symptom of larger racial hysteria that's being stoked. But obviously, it is part of a larger psyop. There's an effort to get the population turned against the police, to stoke these anti-cop ideology. And then, of course, police are now being reaffirmed that they need to be concerned with the citizenry. Rather than protect and serve, the citizens are the enemy. But just because people are calling for an independent citizen review does not make people anti-cop. It's not a mutually exclusive position. In fact, the majority of Americans want independent prosecutors to handle killer cop cases. Now, this is according to a Washington Post poll. They said when it comes to the behavior of cops, Americans hold an almost unheard of amount of consensus. They want independent prosecutors who are not politically linked to city government and police departments. That is not unheard of. That's quite rational, actually. And additionally, 86% of those polled support requiring patrol officers in their areas to wear small video cameras while they're on duty. So why is this an issue? Why are cops now standing down in protest? The same as they were protesting in 1992 when the mayor there in New York tried to pass this as well. And he was successful in getting this independent review. And this is the crux of these protests. People are just calling for a little bit of accountability. Now, we know that there are good cops out there. This is not about being anti-cop. I think that we can separate that. Being a cop is a dangerous job. They're starting to put out these reports. Gun deaths for U.S. officers rose by 56% in 2014. About 1/3 of those officers were killed in an ambush. Now, they say altogether 126 law enforcement officers died in the line of duty in 2014. That's an increase of 24% from last year. Traffic incidents are the second leading cause of death of law enforcement officers. But the problem is that we can't compare those figures to the amount of people who are killed by police because, like I mentioned earlier, they're not required to record that data. So we don't even actually have the numbers of police who are killed, the numbers of people who are killed by police officers. That's what these protests are about. It's not the legitimately anti-cop people who are trying to agitate these protests, but by the majority of Americans who just want a little bit of accountability. That is the demand. Now, coming up, we've told you about the Sony attack. We said that this was definitely an inside job. Well, now some new evidence has surfaced to corroborate those claims. But does the FBI even care?
Sold out for weeks due to the difficult and extensive proprietary process behind its creation, the exclusive Infowars Life Secret 12 formulation is now back in stock in the last limited shipment of 2014. The most bioactive form that has been created with our proprietary process. This ultra-clean vitamin B12 nutraceutical has been carefully crafted and developed over the last 2 years and is based on cellular science of how your body actively absorbs essential nutrients. Secret 12 is taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Vitamin B12 deficiency is linked to scores of serious problems. And Secret 12 is a fusion of 2 organic proprietary forms of vitamin B12, bringing you a true nutraceutical quality vitamin B12. Secret 12. Secret 12 is an excellent Christmas gift and is tailor-made to boost your New Year's resolutions. Supplies of Secret 12 are very limited. Secure yours today at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.